I paid $26,000 for a luxury trip to Dubai, yet I was told I couldn't go. My own father looked me in the eye and said, "Your brother's fiancée deserves it more." At first, I thought it was a cruel joke. Then the plane ticket in my name vanished, replaced with hers, and my seat, the seat I paid for, was gone. They thought I'd swallow the humiliation, disappear quietly. But that betrayal didn't just break me, it awakened me. I wasn't going to fade into silence. I was going to make them regret underestimating me. I had always believed money could patch the cracks in my family, like pouring cement into a crumbling foundation. Maybe if I gave enough, provided enough, sacrificed enough, they would see me not just as the daughter who made it, but as the woman who wanted to belong. That was the thought in my head the day I hit record on my phone and smiled into the camera. "Finally," I announced, my voice cheerful, but my stomach fluttering with nerves. "I'm taking my family to Dubai. $26,000, all on me." The video was short, a 30-second burst of joy, but it went viral almost immediately. Strangers in the comments called me generous, selfless, the dream daughter. My father even reposted it, writing, "Proud of my girl." For a brief moment, I believed in the illusion. I thought maybe this was it. The moment my family would treat me like more than a bank account. When we gathered at my house to plan the details, the atmosphere looked picture perfect. My brother sat close to his fiancée, her hand resting on his arm like she was already cemented into our bloodline. My father clapped me on the back, laughing in that boisterous way that made outsiders think he was larger than life. Even my mother smiled faintly, though her eyes darted nervously whenever I spoke. But what the camera couldn't capture, the one detail I saw when I glanced sideways, was the glimmer in my brother's fiancée's eyes. Not gratitude, not warmth, possession. Like she had already claimed something that belonged to me. I brushed it off. Families were complicated. She was new, maybe just nervous. I told myself not to read too much into it. After all, this was my gift. My chance to bring us together. Still, something gnawed at me. Later that night, alone in bed, I scrolled through the comments on my video. Thousands of strangers rooting for me, saying how lucky my family was. I smiled through tears because deep down, I wanted those strangers to be right. I wanted my father to look at me with pride, not obligation. I wanted my brother to treat me like his equal, not his competitor. I wanted my mother to choose me for once. And so I doubled down on the fantasy. When we met again to finalise tickets, my father's tone had shifted. The warmth was gone, replaced by something colder, sharper. "Madison," he said, clearing his throat, "there's been a change." I looked up from my laptop where the itinerary glowed, waiting for approval. "A change?" "Yes," he said simply, as if he were announcing the weather. "Your seat is no longer yours. It belongs to your brother's fiancée." I blinked, certain I misheard. I don't understand. I booked every seat, paid for every ticket. That seat is mine." He leaned back, expression flat. "She deserves it more. She's joining this family. It's important she feels included." My chest tightened, as if invisible hands pressed down on me. "Included?" I whispered. "By excluding me?" My brother smirked, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Come on, Maddie, you've travelled plenty. Let her have this one. She's never even left the country. Think about how special it will be for her." I turned to my mother, desperate for backup. But she lowered her eyes to the table, silent as always. Something cracked in me. It wasn't just about a trip anymore. It was about erasure, about rewriting history so that I, the daughter who had funded their dreams, became invisible. You can't be serious, I said, my voice shaking. I spent months planning this. I worked overtime, skipped vacations of my own. I wanted us to have something together. You can't just... Enough, my father snapped, his voice sharp as a blade. You sound selfish. This isn't about you. It's about family. The words landed like a slap. Selfish. As if giving $26,000 meant nothing. As if erasing me was an act of love. I felt heat rise in my throat, tears burning behind my eyes. I am family, I said, softer now, almost pleading. My brother chuckled under his breath. Not the kind that matters. I left the house without another word, keys clutched in my fist so tightly they dug into my palm. By the time I sat in the driver's seat of my car, the tears broke free. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, sobs racking my chest. Outside, the world carried on as if nothing had shattered. Cars passed, neighbours watered their lawns. The evening sun dipped low, indifferent to the implosion of my heart. I lifted my phone with trembling hands, recording myself again. But this time my voice was broken, barely a whisper. I should have known this wasn't about a trip, I said, staring into the lens like I was confessing to the world. It was about erasing me. I stopped the recording, staring at my reflection in the black screen. My face was streaked with tears, my eyes swollen. I didn't look like the woman who had been celebrated online for her generosity. I looked like someone who had just realised the people she loved most had chosen to replace her. The night stretched long, filled with silence that roared in my ears. I lay awake, replaying every moment. My father's flat tone, my brother's smug grin, my mother's silence. Every detail pressed into me like a thorn. And beneath the grief, beneath the humiliation, something else stirred. A question whispered, faint but persistent. If they could erase me this easily, what else had they stolen? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. For the first time in years, I didn't feel desperate to win their love. I felt desperate to uncover the truth. And though I didn't know it then, that question, the one I asked myself through tears, was the first step toward tearing their perfect facade apart. The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. No phone calls, no texts, not even the usual flurry of messages about what to pack or which restaurants to try. When I finally checked my phone again, I realised why. The family group chat was gone. Not just muted, not just hidden. I had been removed. It felt like a slap across the face. I stared at the blank screen, the absence louder than any words. My own father had clicked a button and erased me from the conversation. Hours later, an email notification appeared. At first I thought it was a mistake. A charge of $5,000 had been withdrawn from my account, the same card I used to book the trip. My heart dropped as I scrolled through the details. Seat upgrades. Business class. For my brother's fiancée. They hadn't just taken my seat, they had taken my money again to make her more comfortable. My phone buzzed. My father's name lit the screen. For a moment I hesitated, my thumb hovering, tempted to let it ring into silence. But I answered, my voice flat. Hello. Madison, he began, his tone drenched in false sorrow. I know you're upset, but you're still my daughter. Nothing will change that. I bit down hard on the inside of my cheek, willing myself not to scream. Still your daughter, Dad. You erased me, you stole from me, and you gave it to her. "You're exaggerating," he replied calmly, almost rehearsed. "You're strong enough to handle this." "She isn't. Think of this as you taking care of family." My laugh came out bitter. "By disappearing from it?" He sighed, tired of pretending. "Madison, sometimes sacrifices have to be made. You'll understand one day." I hung up before the tears could spill. My hands shook as I reopened the email, staring at the numbers like they might rearrange themselves into something less cruel, but they didn't. The balance was lower, the betrayal higher. I thought the worst had passed. I was wrong. The day the family left for Dubai, my feeds exploded with posts. Videos, photos, live streams. My father, my mother, my brother, and his fiancée beaming against the backdrop of glittering terminals and luxury lounges. And me, nowhere. In one group photo, my face had been replaced, literally erased, cropped out so the family looked complete without me. The caption read, "Dream trip with the ones who matter most." My stomach churned. I clicked on the live stream. There they were, sipping champagne at 30,000 feet, my brother's fiancée leaning into the camera. She smiled, all teeth and venom. "I'm filling Madison's spot," she announced, her tone dripping with mock sweetness. "Permanently." Laughter followed, cruel and sharp. I closed the stream, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. My chest burned as if every breath scraped raw. Then a vibration, a new message, unknown number. "We're sorry. Your father forced us to stay silent." I stared at the words, blinking back the blur of tears. The name attached to it made my stomach twist. My aunt. One of the few people I thought might care, but who had always stood in the background, quiet. So it wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just them choosing her over me. It was coordinated, a conspiracy of silence. The realization hit harder than the live stream, harder than the cropped photos, harder than the empty group chat. Because if they could all be silent together, then I had truly been alone all along. I put the phone down, tears finally spilling, voice breaking as I whispered into the quiet of my room. So it wasn't just betrayal, it was a conspiracy. And in that moment, grief twisted into something else, a rage I didn't yet know how to use. The glow of my phone became my tormentor. Every time I opened it, new images stared back at me. My family laughing in rooftop pools, clinking glasses of champagne in restaurants where the menus didn't even bother listing prices, riding camels across golden dunes with wide, gleaming smiles. All of it financed by me. I scrolled until my chest ached, as if each picture was a fist punching through my ribs. I couldn't look away. Some sick part of me needed to see how far they would go, how deeply they would cut. Then, one night, a new message appeared. It was from my brother, a single photo. His fiancée reclined in her business class seat, champagne flute in hand, a smug smile plastered across her face. The caption beneath it read, "Thanks, sis, she's worth it." My vision blurred. For a moment I couldn't breathe. My brother, the boy I had once defended against bullies, the boy I'd stayed up late tutoring through math tests, the boy who used to cry in my arms when our father's anger flared, had chosen to humiliate me with a smirk and 8 words. I dropped the phone on my bed as if it burned. My hands shook violently, nails biting into my palms until they drew crescents of blood. "Do I even have a family?" I whispered into the dark room. The silence that followed was my answer. That night, I filmed myself again. I set the phone on the nightstand, angled it toward my tear-streaked face, and hit record. This was the moment I died inside, I said, my voice trembling, my reflection fractured in the lens. I didn't post it. I couldn't. Not yet. But the words were there, etched forever into the device I once used to spread joy. Days bled together. I stopped eating properly, barely slept, haunted by their laughter in the videos that replayed in my head, even when the screen was off. The walls of my house seemed to close in, pressing me into silence. I deactivated my accounts, deleting the smiling posts that once made strangers envy my life. The woman who bragged about a 26K trip was gone, replaced by a hollow shadow pacing her bedroom at 3 a.m. The nights were the worst. I lay awake, the ceiling above me endless and suffocating. My mind replayed every cruel word, every look of dismissal. The question looped endlessly. Was I ever part of them, or was I always just convenient? The idea of erasing myself from the world entirely crept closer each day. If they could erase me so easily, maybe I was already gone. Then, just when I thought the darkness had consumed me entirely, my phone buzzed with a notification. A direct message on a dormant account I had forgotten to close. The name stopped me cold. Claire. My best friend from college, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, someone who had known me before the family, shaped me into their scapegoat. Her message was short, almost abrupt. Tell your story. People need to know. I stared at the words for a long time, my hands frozen above the screen. It was the first time in weeks that someone had spoken to me, not with dismissal, not with cruelty, not with silence, but with recognition. Someone saw me. Tears spilled freely, but they weren't the same tears of despair that had stained my pillow every night. These were tears of something different, something fragile like hope, trying to claw its way out of the rubble. I typed and erased a dozen responses before finally sending, "Why would anyone care?" Her reply came instantly. "Because you're not the only one. You'd be surprised how many of us have lived this. Don't let them bury you. Use your voice." I set the phone down, staring into the dark. My chest rose and fell with shaky breaths. For the first time since they left me behind, I felt a flicker of warmth inside the hollow space where my family's love used to live. I walked to the mirror, wiping the remnants of tears from my cheeks. My reflection looked broken, but alive. My silence had been their weapon, the thing that allowed them to rewrite the story while I stayed quiet. Maybe it was time to change that. I turned back to the camera, this time not trembling, but steady. I whispered into the lens. Maybe my silence was their weapon. But what if my voice could be my revenge? The morning I decided to fight back was the first morning I'd woken up without tears. My eyes were swollen, my body weak from weeks of restless nights, but there was something in my chest that hadn't been there before, resolve. I dragged a box out from under my bed, the one where I shoved away old receipts and financial papers, the one I thought I'd never need. With trembling hands, I began sorting. Printouts of flight confirmations, copies of hotel reservations, emails from travel agencies with my name on every invoice, and the thick stack of bank statements showing every transaction tied to my account, receipts, hard, undeniable proof that the entire trip existed because of me. I lined them across the kitchen table like puzzle pieces, my pulse quickening as the picture grew clear. They hadn't just stolen a seat. They had stolen an entire experience, every moment funded by my sacrifices. Later that day, I searched online for answers. Not about travel, not about hotels, but about something deeper. I found myself on a forum titled Children of Narcissistic Parents. At first, I lurked silently, scrolling through stories that felt too close to my own. Daughters erased in favour of sons. Fathers who played favourites. Mothers who stayed quiet out of fear. Every post echoed my life. The scapegoat child, the golden child, the cycle of gaslighting. For the first time, I realised my suffering wasn't random. It was a pattern, a system, a sickness that had been running through my family long before Dubai. Anger surged through me, not the hot, reckless kind that makes you scream, but a steady, righteous fire that sharpened my focus. No more silence, I whispered to myself, my hands gripping the edges of the table. I picked up my phone, turned the camera toward me, and hit record. My face still carried the traces of pain, but my eyes looked different. They think they've won, I said softly, staring straight into the lens. They think erasing me makes their family perfect, but masks slip. And when they do, the truth burns brighter than any lie. I stopped recording, my thumb hovering over the upload button. My chest rose and fell, my pulse drumming in my ears. For now, I saved it to drafts. Not yet. The timing had to be perfect. I looked back at the camera, and for the first time in weeks, my lips curved into something close to a smile. Let's see how perfect they look when the mask is gone, I murmured. The next step was more dangerous. I called a lawyer. Explaining the situation felt surreal, how my father had removed me from a trip I funded, how they'd stolen thousands more to upgrade someone else, how I had every receipt to prove it. The lawyer listened carefully, taking notes. "You have grounds," she finally said. "This isn't just unfair, it's financial exploitation. You could sue for reimbursement, even damages." The word damages tasted sweet. Not because of the money, I didn't care about that anymore, but because it acknowledged my pain as real, something the law itself could recognize. I left her office, clutching a folder of documents, my evidence neatly organized, weaponized. Back home, I set my plan into motion. It wouldn't be one strike, but many. First, I would reclaim what was mine, the bookings, the reservations, the proof that only I held legal ownership. Then I would expose the truth publicly, not out of spite, but because silence had been their weapon for too long. I drafted posts, screenshots of receipts paired with photos of their smiling faces in Dubai, captions that revealed the contrast between illusion and reality. But before I could unleash it, another email arrived. This one from the luxury hotel in Dubai. "Dear Ms. Hale, this is to confirm that all reservations under this booking are legally tied to your payment information. As the primary account holder, you retain full rights to amend or revoke benefits at your discretion." I read the line 3 times, my heart thundering. Full rights. Not my father, not my brother, not the fiancé, me. The twist I hadn't expected fell right into my lap. Every key to their vacation still belonged to me. I leaned back in my chair, a laugh breaking through my lips. Startling, almost foreign after so many weeks of silence and tears. "Game over hasn't even started yet," I whispered, a smile tugging at my face. For the first time, I felt not just like a survivor, but like someone who held the power to turn the story around. And I was only getting started. The email I sent to the travel agency was short, clinical, stripped of the fury that burned inside me. I attached the receipts, the hotel's confirmation that I was the sole account holder, and the proof of unauthorized charges from my card. My request was simple: revoke all privileges tied to my booking immediately. 2 days later, the storm began. My phone buzzed with a notification from the resort in Dubai. We regret to inform you that privileges under this booking have been rescinded. Guests must vacate accommodations until payment is verified. I pictured them standing at the glossy marble counter of the hotel lobby, their designer luggage stacked beside them, confusion twisting into horror as the receptionist explained the truth. Their stay wasn't valid anymore. For the first time, the control they had wielded over me snapped in half. They weren't untouchable, they were squatters in the palace I had built. But reclaiming my rights wasn't enough. They had erased me publicly, so I would return the favour. I set up my phone, hit record, and let the words spill. "My name is Madison Hale," I began, voice steady though my hands trembled. "And I need to tell you how my family stole $26,000 from me. I paid for a dream trip to Dubai for all of us. But when it came time to board, they kicked me off. They gave my seat to my brother's fiancée, saying she deserved it more. And while they drank champagne in the sky, I stayed home, erased from their photos, their stories, their lives. But here's the truth. Every dollar, every booking, every luxury was mine. I held up the receipts to the camera, one by one, proof layered on proof. Then I showed the cropped photo, my absence framed like a scar. "This," I said, my eyes locked on the lens, "is what family betrayal looks like." I posted it with a caption, "Here's how my family stole my $26K trip." Within hours, it exploded. 5 million views in 48 hours. The comments section became a battlefield. Some voices were skeptical. "Why air your dirty laundry? Family issues should stay private." Others turned the blame on me. "She sounds bitter. Maybe they had their reasons." But the majority, they saw it for what it was. This is toxic parenting 101. Your brother's fiancée is a parasite. No wonder she's alone. They pushed her out. The narrative was no longer theirs to control. I filmed a follow-up, ending with a quiet promise to the viewers. And this was just chapter 1. The words hung in the digital air like a match dropped into gasoline. Back in Dubai, my family was unravelling. The fiancée, who once flaunted her new status online, was suddenly silent. But the silence didn't last long. Internet detectives did what they always do. They dug. Screenshots of her past relationships, whispers of her using men for money. Old posts where she mocked boring rich guys resurfaced like ghosts she thought she'd buried. The label stuck quickly, gold digger. Her engagement to my brother collapsed almost overnight. What was supposed to be a fairy tale announcement turned into a public humiliation. My brother wasn't spared either. His company, wary of the online uproar, decided he was too much of a liability. They cut him loose, releasing a polite statement about values and public image. Translation, they didn't want to be associated with someone who lived off his sister's generosity and laughed while erasing her. As for my father, the man who had once held the neighbourhood's respect like a crown, he lost it all. Neighbours who once admired him now whispered behind curtains. At the grocery store, people avoided his eyes. At church, he felt the weight of judgment in every silence. His name became synonymous with betrayal, not pride. The collapse wasn't loud, it was steady, relentless, like a building crumbling brick by brick until only dust remained. And me, for the first time, I wasn't the one holding the wreckage. Late one evening, as I scrolled through yet another wave of comments, some supportive, some cruel, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from my mother. "Please, stop. You've destroyed us enough." I stared at the words, the irony hitting like a blade. Me destroying them, as if they hadn't begun the destruction themselves, chiseling away at me until I almost disappeared. I set the phone down slowly, my hands steady. For the first time in my life, their guilt wasn't mine to carry. The messages started as a trickle, a handful of strangers reaching out with simple words. "I believe you. Thank you for speaking up." Then the trickle became a flood. Hundreds of notifications, then thousands, filling my inbox faster than I could read them. Some were short, quick bursts of encouragement. "You're brave." I needed this today. Others were long confessions, people pouring out their own stories of favoritism, erasure, betrayal. Stories that mirrored mine with eerie precision. Siblings given everything, scapegoats cast aside, mothers who stood silent while fathers wielded cruelty like a hammer. I sat in my living room, phone in hand, scrolling for hours, tears streaming freely. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. Then came the post that froze me mid-breath. It was from my cousin, someone who had never spoken publicly against my father, someone who usually smiled politely and said nothing. He wrote, "Madison is telling the truth. I know because I lived it too. Uncle treated me the same way he treated her, like I was disposable, like I'd never be enough. I stayed quiet out of fear, but I can't stay silent anymore." The comments exploded, support pouring in, not just for me, but for him as well. My father's carefully crafted facade, the mask he had worn for decades, was gone. Not ripped away by me, but by truth itself. Justice wasn't about courtrooms or verdicts. It was about the slow collapse of lies when exposed to light. My family, once a fortress I could never penetrate, had cracked open from the inside. Without me as the scapegoat to absorb their poison, they turned on each other. My brother blamed my father. My father blamed my brother's fiancée. My mother begged for peace that no one wanted to give. I watched from afar, not with glee, but with a quiet understanding. This was never about destroying them. It was about freeing myself. One night, after scrolling through more messages of support than I could count, I opened my journal and wrote, "Justice wasn't about punishing them. It was about freeing me." And as I closed the book, I felt lighter than I had in years. That light became the seed of something new. I bought a microphone and set it on my desk. The first recording was shaky, my voice trembling, but the words were mine. "Welcome to Family Shadows," I said softly. "This is where we talk about the families that hurt us, the scars they leave, and how we heal." The first episode was my story, raw and unpolished. I cried halfway through. I stopped, breathed, and kept going. When I posted it, I didn't expect much, but within days, thousands were listening. Then tens of thousands. My inbox filled again, not just with support, but with people asking to share their own voices. What began as my wound became a platform for others to speak. And with each story, the community grew. I found my chosen family there. Not through blood, but through honesty. People who didn't ask me to shrink, to be silent, to sacrifice myself. People who reminded me that I was enough simply for existing. In time, the anger faded, not because they deserved forgiveness, but because I no longer needed to carry it. It wasn't mine to hold. One evening, sitting by my window as the sun dipped low, I wrote another entry in my journal. I still love my mother, but the love I wasted on waiting for her to choose me, I've given back to myself. It was the truest thing I had ever written. Months later, I filmed one final video. My followers had asked for closure, for something to tie the story together. I sat in front of the camera. No makeup, no mask, just me. The best revenge? I said with a small, steady smile. Living free while they drown in the mess they created. I ended the recording, uploaded it, and shut the laptop. For the first time in my life, the silence that followed didn't feel heavy. It felt like peace.